First is one word that best describes your leadership style, which you are practicing.
Well, I would say thoughtful. I would say open to learning. I think this is basically my main message. We'll keep coming back to that.
Sir, what's your biggest strength as a leader and one weakness you consider yourself? You may or may not say about that. You are still working on.
I think, even be isolated, even to lose a position, I wouldn't flinch. I am very used to standing alone. But I'm also understand the importance of being subordinate in a team. And it's not just teamwork. One thing that people get annoyed with me is I keep interrupting them when they are speaking. That's one level of interaction that I have. But I do think that I can become demanding on people whom I'm working with. But 10 years later, we really feel that, you were trying to say something which I missed.
Right. Sir, any book that changed the way you lead? People think it's leadership, but it's a myth.
I think this notion that a leader has to have charisma and that he needs to be a perfect role model. I think leaders are what's and all. I think he needs to be more human rather than suprahuman. This notion is an unnecessary burden.
So, hello everyone. Welcome to the Voices of Change, a global leadership series, where we bring you insights and experiences of global leaders who are shaping the future of public health. I'm your host, Professor Dr. Sonu Goyal, and I'm honored to welcome Professor Dr. T. Sundararaman. Dr. T. Sundararaman began his professional journey with MBBS and MD in internal medicine from University of Madras, a very famous university, followed by over 2 decades of teaching and clinical practice at JIPMER, Puducherry, another very important university in India. He went on to serve as founding director of State Health Resource Center and later become an executive director of National Health System Resource Center, which we considered as a think tank for Ministry of Health, Government of India, and where he has played a pivotal role in shaping the landmark initiatives under National Rural Health Mission. A prolific author, his work is widely recognized in the field of health policy and system. His recent book, The Science and Practice of Public Health, Perspective from Developing World, reflects his deep insights into public health practice in low and middle income settings. Beyond institution and policies, Dr. Sundararaman has been a lifelong activist and a guiding force to people's movement. He is a founder member of All India People's Science Network and Jan Swasthya Abhiyan and has played a global leadership role in the People's Health Movement, including serving as a global coordinator. Currently, he is based in Pondicherry, Puducherry. He continues to contribute as an adjunct faculty at JIPMER, his parent institute, International School of Public Health, and as an independent consultant with World Health Organization, Southeast Asia Region Office. Dr. Sundararaman, your journey is really an inspiration for all of us who are working in public health, and it's truly an honor to have you with us today. Welcome, Dr. Sundararaman.
Thank you. It's an honor to be part of this program. I'm also at this age looking forward to sharing my thoughts with a younger audience, people who have a future in front of them.
Wonderful, sir, because you have been a global leader and you have shaped the health system of the country. And I was privileged to part of the first cohort of 2008, where you mentored as a director of National Health System Resource Center and prepared the district action plan of Haryana. And I was part of that making of district action plan at that point of time. So thank you again to be with us. So, sir, you have played a global leadership role, and you were you were director of National Health System Resource Center, and you have mentored many other institutes in your past. So, according to you, what are the key qualities that define a successful leader, and how have these qualities shaped your own leadership journey over a period of time?
I think the first thought that comes to my mind is the need to have a vision, a sense of direction, a sense of the values that you stand for. You can go anywhere. I mean, it's not about leadership. It's not about being in the front of the queue. It's about where you feel people should be going. And that leadership should be, in my mind, inspired by the fact, especially if you're in public health, that you are working in the interests of the poor and the marginalized and the majority of the people. And it is in their interest, as Workov first said, that you have to be public health physicians, he said at that time, are the natural attorneys of the poor. So you have to actually be able to champion. And that sense that it has to be public goods, it has to be in the larger interest, that vision is important. But along with that vision, it is a matter of being able to work participatorily in building a team to share that vision, at times requiring to stand alone, but larger times willing to put readiness to put effort to take people along in that. I mean, it's not just a journey that you can make on your own. It has to be, you have to carry along people from very many different backgrounds. And therefore, one has to have the patience and one has to have the persistence to be able to move in a particular direction in a very systematic way and without a very high degree of optimism.
Right. Great, sir. So I think very rightly said that one should have a vision where we want to go, and that vision needs to be in the line of overall public good. And then again, setting a team so that we select the direction where we want to move. And we need to be very persistent and have perseverance for achieving those goals which we have set in the initial time. So thank you, sir. So now, because in the leadership journey, people face different challenges. Because when you are a leader, when you are working for a cause, we are bound to face various challenges. So can you think about some situations where you have faced those challenges and how you have navigated those situations and what were the learnings?
So my very first entry into a certain public health leadership role uh, was a huge challenge because we were starting out a large community health worker program in Chhattisgarh, which was a newly formed state, largely tribal state, very underdeveloped, and at 2002, very, very underdeveloped. And we were starting with a large community health worker program of women health volunteers called the Mitanin program. And when we started out, we were met quite universally with disbelief. I remember a minister even laughing that, do you really think that women like this are going to go out there and work? I remember friends with whom I worked very closely in civil society used to say, well, we know that civil society, NGOs can do this in about 30 to 60 villages. But a government doing it to scale is bound to be a failure. And there were both academicians and donors who said, don't you know about what happened in the late 70s, early 80s with the Village Health Guide program? It failed. If you are condemned to do the same thing that you did in the past, you are going to fail also. So I think there was a sort of unanimous consensus that community health workers is not a winning idea, a proposition. And we had a hard task to be able to change that mindset and to prove it on the ground. And I think there were two things that were very important in this. First was, as I said, the vision. The fact that you do require the public to be participating, that you do require communities of active participants. It cannot be done without it. So, however difficult it is, that is the direction one must go. So, once you accept it as a non-negotiable, that engagement with the community is a non-negotiable, then you start looking back on what happened in the past. You try to figure out what went wrong, why did it. So far from ignoring the past, far from being prisoner of the past, you decide that you must actually learn from the past so that you can do better this time around. And therefore, you have to really move that. And it's not as if there was a ready consensus on that. So when you start moving forward, you have to prove it on the ground. And this proof of concept emerged from 15 about blocks. But then, it doesn't sustain like that. And such gains are very, very fragile. So no sooner than there is a change of administration or political leadership or donor support, then the old problems are all back with a vengeance. And they're telling you, no, it's shutting down, it's not working here. You don't even have the time to learn to correct yourself and redo some of the mistakes you have made. So there are mistakes on the ground and you need to actually redo. But if a mistake is held as a proof of the fact that it is bound to fail and shut it down, then you don't have the time to correct. And therefore, the ability to actually keep that space open with the power to negotiate and to be able to do self-correction, to learn and to be able to know is you go in with a plan, you have based that plan on what you have learned, but that has no proof of its success. As you go in, you find a whole lot of problems cropping up, and you have to quickly redo your plans. And while you're redoing your plans, the constitutional space, the governmental space to be able to continue, you have to retain. So that, I think, has been the problem. And the program was almost shut down in 2004-5, and it was almost like people were saying it's over. When we were somehow able to regain the confidence, the National Rural Health Mission happened, support came in, and what was being dismissed became the model around which today you have the nationwide ASHA program. And today you have a 1 million strong workforce. It started over there. And very few people know how close it was to being shut down as a failure before we could turn it around and that. And there were mistakes and there were problems in how you thought about sustenance, how you conceived the program, and that had to be learned from the ground on that, and that required a whole system.
Wonderful, sir. I think this is the best example of the success which has emerged from the challenge. And you have very rightly told a quote, and I really like that. We should not be the prisoners of the past mistakes which we have done. So I think rather than being a prisoner of the past mistake, we should learn from them and we should move ahead with a very meticulous plan, a very vision in the mind. And you have also told that the active participation of the community. So we have seen many programs which has led to a success only because we have active participation of the community in the public health movement. So I think kudos to you, sir, because the Mitanin program really was a very good model. And I must say that one of the very best model in the public health in this century, which has turned to be the ASHAs, the 1 million ASHAs who are working at the ground level in our country for the health sector. So great, sir. So I think it was one of the very big challenge and how that challenge has been converted into an opportunity. So, sir, continuing with the same question, a similar type of question, that what are the most significant risks you have taken or one of the biggest mistake you made as a leader, and how did that experience shape your leadership approach as the mindset goes forward?
So, even when you were talking about past mistakes, I would prefer to use past experience than mistakes.
Right.
In the sense that one shouldn't, given a given context in the past, people took choices, right? So to sit on it judgmentally today and call it a mistake will actually miss the point. It is rather try to understand why they did those choices, why they did not work out, and what can we do better. And sometimes, therefore, it's a question of trying to understand that. In that sense, uh, I don't think there is any success that I have to relate which does not carry along with it a burden of mistakes. You know
Mm.
what I mean? If we built a system on quality assurance, then in the run up to the quality assurance, we tried so many things that we did not work.
Right, right.
And we kept changing, we kept improving, we kept tweaking it. So those things we tried, you can call them mistakes, but they weren't mistakes. They were, to me, the process of learning.
Mm.
And there is a problem that there is so little of good theory to help us guide us. And even then, even if we have theory, we have to get experience. So, in some sense, if you look at every one of the programs, even
Mm.
what is the role that you expect of the program on this, we have a whole series of learnings to do. For example, in referral transport systems, for example, we
Yeah,
started with saying we will give so many people a certain amount, 1,000 rupees for the vehicle and 400 rupees for a thing. Then we said it didn't work, the money was not given, we will give it through the panchayats. Then it didn't work, we repackaged it as Janni Suraksha Yojana. Then that also didn't work. Then 108 ambulance and 104 drop back, 104 drop back people on the thing. So why? Because people would be brought to the hospital, but they'd leave before 48 hours. So then we had to
right,
introduce. So you can see that every success is a series of iterations
right.
where you are overcoming, you have got some things right, but you've got others wrong. And you are
Mm.
constantly building a learning adaptive system where the key is to actually continuously use a system of a continuous feedback loop where you're constantly self-correcting, reflective on the whole process on that.
Yeah,
So I would say, therefore, I cannot talk of one mistake, I have too many. And I really feel that you should really look at, for example, look at the payment mechanisms for the ASHA, where all we have gone with that.
mm.
Today it is relatively stable, but even now the game is not over. It's still
Yeah.
very much dynamic and moving forward. And if you say that why did we not do what we are doing in 2026 in the year 2006, really it could not have been done. Finance would not have agreed, people wouldn't have agreed, the point was not seen of the ARCHA program. It couldn't have been done. But at 2026, to do what we did at 2006 doesn't make sense either.
Yeah, yeah.
Because in 20 years, the ASHA has evolved, the proof of the concept is there.
Mm.
At that time, we were talking about 12 hours per week. Today, she is doing some 48 hours, 36 to 40 hours per week. She is working on a full-time basis. So the whole context, situation, expectations, everything has changed. And at some point, at that time, you had a lot of pregnant women whom you were escorting, a lot of babies whose immunization you are saying. Now, because of fertility control and dropping birth rates, even that level of opportunity is not there, and those behavior changes have happened. You do not
Right.
really require incentives for family planning, immunization, and institutional delivery the way you required it that time. But you still require her for non-communicable diseases, you require for mental health, you require. So that whole process of evolution requires an understanding of constantly being able to learning and adapt. And I think that's the basic character which I would say defines what I have tried to be built to envisage health systems as learning adaptive systems.
Wonderful, sir. I think you have cleansed the point that as a leader, our main aim is to make decisions, and sometimes the decision may not be in the line where we think on. But unless we make the decisions, we may not be able to progress ahead. And you are very right that rather than mistakes, these are the choices which people, the leaders usually make based on the based on total information in a very right way, ethical way, so that people move forward. And these are the experiences which shape a particular program. So now going to your team, because you told that the team is really important along with the vision. So, what are some specific strategies which you use to keep team motivated and inspired, and so that every person is valued, heard, and included in the conversation? So, how do you do that?
I think this is a very important aspect, but there is no simple one-line answer to it. I would say there are a few things that are important. One is to be accessible. They should be able to walk into your room. There should be time periods when they can walk in without even the secretaries think a sort of 0 hour. Okay. I mean, people may come to you by appointment, but around this time, if something urgent, you can just walk in or catch you on the way. At any time, you have to be accessible. That is a hell of a pain for work-life balance. But having said that, I think this is something that's important. The second, I think, is to actually encourage collective functioning and thinking. So while you are accessible, that weekly session where people of a particular working on a problem can meet together, submit, make their own work plans, and look at their progress on that and share and learn what is happening with the rest of the team is really important on that. I think the third thing is to help those who in this collective lag behind. You notice some people lag behind in this group. Some people are full of it. There you have to sort of reach out to them so that the next meeting they are able to actually have a good positive presentation and story to tell. But you have to reach out to them, help them plan so that they have a success and let them take the credit. Not say that I have actually helped them write it or let them do it. So they get a positive feedback, a sense of confidence that they are able to achieve it. And these correctives, you have to provide them. A relative, a corollary of this is you have to be willing to put criticism politely but firmly. One of my old mentors told me that not criticizing people is not doing them a favor, it's denying them the opportunity to correct themselves. At some point, if you want to actually help people along, you have to give them a frank input so that they understand, but then help them correct it and see that correction, support them in doing that. I think this is extremely important. And somewhere one has to show that you are concerned about them as individuals and their work-life balance. I'm not too sure I do get that part very well, but I think this is something that is extremely important that you do understand that. So this building a team, there is no single formula to it, and nor does it work for everybody. But I think that this is important that we reckon. First is acknowledging that much of the success of work is collective, and different people bring different strengths to the team. Some person is very good in contacting. If he have to send somebody to talk with that particular officer who is not a good friendly with me, then I send somebody, he goes and does the talking. That guy is not the great person in making a PowerPoint. Somebody else has a greater skill in that. So actually, in a team, you have people with different skill sets, and to be able to complement each other and still feel rewarded, I think is a issue that is really a challenge on that. But I think this is extremely important, and in every place, the team's admiration of you. It's like this. They will tell you should mentor them. But when we start the work, we don't know I'm mentoring them. We are just interacting with them. But 10 years later, 15 years later, after I have moved on, and if I meet them in a reunion or I just meet them in an airport and they tell me, sir, thank you, or you hear from somebody else, he mentored me in my growth, then you know you got something right. Mentoring is something that in retrospect, many years
Mm.
later, that he was I had a mentor-mentee relationship with it. That's not how you start in a team. But
Right.
eventually you are mentoring them, but that is something that will be known much later.
Yeah. So I think you have told the very impeccable qualities of motivating the team, and I think started with accessibility, collective learning, and reach out to those who lag behind so that they come in the line, and they should have the sense of ownership whenever they are working. So sense of ownership for the work, believing in them that they can do the work, and supporting them in doing the work. And when they have done the work, I think acknowledging them for their successes. I think that also keep them motivating. And you have also told that complementing the skill set, because everybody is not good at all the skills. So I think when people complement, they also learn the new skills and they keep themselves motivated in the team. Wonderful, sir. So now, sir, because as a leader, you have told one incident that you have to softly criticize as well, and sometimes help them correcting them their mistakes and all those things. So you might have faced the conflicts or tough decision within your team. So how do you approach a resolution, or it's sort of a conflict management? So can you narrate any incident where you have done that and everyone was a win-win situation?
You know, uh, not every time has been successful. So it's not actually that every time we have done it right. We know sometimes in retrospect only. But I think a general principle is to maintain transparency on the decision
Hmm.
and explain why one took choices under the circumstance. Admit that the choice may be wrong, but given the fact that you are in charge or you're playing a particular role or is expected of you, this is your best foot forward on that. But really, what is important is that when we collectively take a choice, it's not a true collective because you are in a leadership position. So your accountability is more. So when the choice goes wrong, take the responsibility of the mistake and don't shove the responsibility onto your team.
Hmm.
I think this aspect of a leadership is particularly important to win trust.
Right.
So when things go south, do you step up or do you throw them under the bus? This
Hmm.
is really literally the issue on that. You know,
Right.
and things do go wrong. I mean, not necessarily objectively wrong. As somebody senior comes and starts shouting at you for something that you've not done or something that you failed to do, it may be the other guy's fault, but that's not the time to say it. That's something that you have to satisfy internally. You unless you have reached a certain stage. So I think it's really true, and you cannot demand the trust of your juniors.
Hmm. Hmm.
You must be able to command it.
Right.
And from your peers, it's a 1:1 relationship. There's a famous prisoner's dilemma situation where
Hmm.
if there's something negative done to you, you'll have to do it back again. There's a tit for tat. But after that, after you have made your point, then you have to reach out and bring them over. If you
Hmm.
keep that in your mind and go on, you did that, you did that, you did that, it's all
Yeah.
right. It's all right and perhaps necessary to give it back once.
Hmm.
Just being too polite and taking all the mess that is thrown at you. I'm using mess as a polite word. That is a mess that is thrown at you is not necessarily going to help build a long-term relationship. You'll have to give it back. But after giving it back, you'll have to reach out and then
Yeah.
say, okay, that is over. Now let's move on into the next area on that. So I think that it's not about only managing the conflict, what you do after the management. You have taken a decision, then you do make sure that that problem is localized to that problem and it doesn't spill over into other areas. That point has
Yeah.
to be made. Of
No,
course,
that's it. Yeah.
That's a one that many people will find useful under that. This is something that.
That's a very important point, I think, you made. And normally people make reputations about a people. And whenever the situation comes, they always think that that person has thought about that situation or the solution. That person is not correct. So we should take the decision situation wise, and we should not make an impression, general impression about a person. Rather, we should solve, as you have rightly pointed out. We need to have a neutral approach towards a solution to a particular problem rather than fixing a problem to a particular person. So I think that's wonderful. And you have also told about it's not just during the problem, but after the problem also need to reach out to the person so that they are satisfied with the decisions which has been made in the correct context. And again, I think you have told about the neutrality of the decision as well. One should be neutral in taking the decision to all the employees, whosoever you are working with.
I'm just going to slightly clarify two things. One need not claim a very supra-objective position of neutrality. One must more confess and admit that this decision is made by me under such circumstances and be transparent about it. So to some extent, one can admit a bias. Okay, then say, look, I have this pressure. I am having to do it under this. It may be wrong, but look, since I have an accountability on this. If it's a democratic vote, I would go differently. But if it's not a democratic vote, I have to take the responsibility of it. I will need to take this, and this is my reason. Like say,
Right.
Look, this person has to be fired. Look, I know he has to be fired, but I know something about his family. I think it's a bad time to fire him. It's going to cost the organization a little bit different, but I'm going to do it differently. That's my style. I mean, if I'm in charge, I'm not going to take the decision immediately. So that sort of a conversation is required,
Required, yeah.
Again, I'm saying in the conflict resolution, it's not that you expect them to accept. They will not necessarily accept, but you say, okay, that particular decision of mine, you did not accept. That particular decision, we disagree, but we've gone with what I've done. But in the rest of our interactions,
right,
we need not let this spill over. As far as that, so localize the conflict to a particular issue, but don't let it affect the entire range of work. Usually the conflict will be on a particular singular decision. So don't let it generalize into, okay, you behave that way with me. No, on that particular point, I disagree, but that doesn't mean much for the rest of it.
Right. Wonderful, sir. Sir, can you tell about some of the influential role models in your life and any example how they have shaped your values and leadership philosophies?
There are multiple role models in my life, and there are many, many different things that I have learned from very many different people on that. So I would say that, for example, this sense of values and direction and how you stand firm to it. One of the persons who was a great influence was David Sanders, the global coordinator of the People's Health Movement. But if you want to go to another pool, if you want to go to something like how, as a bureaucrat within an administration, you manage files in a bureaucracy. With files, you exercise a leadership. I used to ask my officers why they think this officer is good and not that officer, between two IAS officers. And they'll say, look, when we go to the officer with a problem on the file, he takes that file, reads it through, and then puts down his comment in a way that he solves the problem for us.
Right.
Whereas there are others who will put it down in such a way, he will put it back to you. He'll say, do what is appropriate to the requirement.
Right.
There is a Hindi word, karyavahi kare, anuchit, jo anuchit, whatever it is. You do that. So that is really, when it has come to you, they are saying, look, it's going above my pay scale. So you have to take that particular. So I've found officers like, say, Girish Chaturvedi, Anil Bodia, Anita Kaul, I found IAS officers whom I worked with who were great teachers to me on how to do file work. There's an entire difference. Yeah, then I see people who how to conduct a committee meeting or thing. There's a different set of people actually from the left movement who have seen being able to put participative democracy, but yet an intellectual leadership, a theoretical leadership, be able to reconcile that. So there are many lessons you learn,
Mm.
different things you learn from different people. And I dare say, I've also learned, let me say, negative role models. My God, he's a great man, but look, just before his retirement, how petty he is acting. I hope I don't become that way when I reach his age. So there are many people who might say, look, this guy has been such a great, you see people who have been throughout their lives great achievers. But
Right,
at the end of the day, they are still so dissatisfied and squabbling and they say, what is this guy? What's wrong with this guy? Why isn't he giving his younger people some chance? Why is he not moving on or not being kinder? After all, he's not in competition. So those sort
right,
of role models are also there. So
right,
you learn and you see how all the others see this great man now because he is not lived up to his greatness, and you learn from that. So I think that the notion of a model is not just one hero,
yeah.
but many everyday heroisms and everyday problems that people have that you learn from. So something,
Yeah,
you know.
and you're very much right that I think we need to learn from multiple people who are surrounding us. He may not be a very senior person, but sometimes you learn from people who are counterparts or even junior or even very who those who are working.
Different
Uh,
sources, like I would say, to write a letter of thanks or to write a letter to
mm,
somebody explaining it so that they'd feel well. I learned from my father, who was
right.
an industrial engineer in a steel company. But basically, how you can craft a letter nowadays in email and WhatsApp, when the letter writing as a craft is gone. But the
Yeah.
letter writing could be so, people
Right.
read the letter and they preserve the letter. You
Mm,
actually you never did away with letters in the past because those letters were so much meaning. That's a particular thing, and
art.
I don't think I'm so influenced by the tremendous generosity that they could show with different people. That's my parents,
Mm,
at some point. So it's multiple sources from which you learn these things, and it's important to be open to that.
right. And very rightly said, sir. We need to be open to, I think, these learnings which are from different leaders and different people around us. So, sir, now coming to the last question of this series before we go to the rapid fire questions, that according to your perspective, now, what are the biggest challenges leaders face in today's world? And what advice would you like to give to youngsters who will be the future leaders who have just begun their leadership journey?
Ah, it's very difficult to give advice at the best of times. Huh? At some point, advice is thing, and I think the importance is that they should do the right thing. You know, um, and there is a requirement to have that value of selflessness. One must take care of one's legitimate interests. I mean, you do need to be practical. You have to put food on the table. You have to run a life. A family is to be taken care of. There are responsibilities to be handled. But having said that, I think the important thing is to not look immediately at some form of transient recognition, but to go to make a difference, and whatever it takes. Sometimes you become famous, sometimes you don't, sometimes you get an award, sometimes you don't. You don't go saying, I am going to go for that award. That
Mm,
really diminishes even the award when you get it. You
you're
just
right.
go for doing the right thing, and whatever follows, you accept it and learn to accept that. Because eventually, even when you know that so and so has a big award, you know that many people worked around him for him to get that award. Seldom that individuals make history. So I think we all have a role to play, and if we are comfortable with that role, then it makes a big difference.
No, wonderful, sir. I think doing right things, and that is what leadership is. And the values of selflessness, yet being practical in today's world, I think that's really is important. And we need to think about whether at this point of time, are we contributing something to the society? Besides whatever we are doing to our own, are we doing something for the society? Great, sir. So I think thank you for all these insights. So now coming to the rapid fire questions for you, sir. So first is one word that best describe your leadership style, which you are practicing.
Well, I would say thoughtful. I would say open to learning. I think this is basically my main message. Will keep coming back to that.
Right, sir. Sir, any leader you admire the most? You have named few leaders who are your counterparts, you are your seniors, but any one, maybe you may not have interacted with them, but you admire with the qualities being emulated?
Not really from fiction. What we have a number. It's very difficult, as I said, to name one. So if you are insisting on one, maybe David Sanders. But there is a Dr. Sesha Reddy who helped me formulate my choices. There's a Nalasivam. There's somebody called MP Parmeswaran who worked with the science movements, who had a great influence on me. So mine has been multiple influences
Multiple,
and
yeah.
no historical characters per se that I would be particularly like to uphold on that. But there are many
Right.
people who have done that. I mean, if you're
Right, sir.
looking at that sort of a leader, then A. Nalasivam perhaps. But who has heard of A. Nalasivam? So it's something like that. It's somebody whom you, yeah.
Right, sir. Sir, what's your biggest strength as a leader and one weakness you consider yourself? You may or may not say about that. You are still working on.
I think, one of my biggest strengths is I'm ready to stand alone when required, even be isolated, even to lose a position. I wouldn't flinch. I am very used to standing alone. But I'm
Hmm.
also understand the importance of being subordinate in a team.
Hmm.
It's not just teamwork. You have a different leadership, and then okay, you say your bit, you stand alone, but the decision is taken, then you abide by that decision.
Okay.
This
Right.
combination of standing alone and the willingness for subordination as a character in a
Hmm.
teamwork is, I think, to me, a very important issue on that. Weaknesses, there are many, but I think that one thing that people get annoyed with me is I keep interrupting them when they are speaking. That's one level of interaction that I have. But I do think that I can become demanding on people whom I'm working with in terms of achieving their requirements or being sort of over ambitious for them or for myself at some point. That could be a problem.
Yeah, and in fact, it is a strength for, I consider it as a strength because thinking about people and thinking about how they can achieve even more, I think this is, I consider your weakness as a strength sometimes.
Yeah, but it can be a pain to some people as long as
Yeah,
they
and
can. Yeah,
maybe at that point of time, it is a weakness. They consider that, but when they come back after 10 years,
correct.
they think those things as the strength.
Correct. Some
Uh,
people even come back later and apologize to me. We missed what you were saying then. But 10 years later, we really feel that, you were trying to say something which I missed.
Right, right. Sir, any book that changed the way you lead?
There's one book and one character in a book which I almost consciously emulate. So when you ask this question, that book comes up to my mind and no other book comes up to my mind. That is Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird.
Sorry, sir.
Atticus Finch in the book To Kill a Mockingbird.
Okay,
That
okay,
is, in fact, to me, the model of a leader. The character, Harper Lee, and it's in southern United States. You must read that book to understand what it is. Both as a
okay.
father, as a parent, as leading a thing or standing up for a cause. of being willing to lose, of being willing to learn, all these things in some sense. It's very well known for people around me that I'm very much influenced by that.
Great. So I love to read that book.
Yeah.
Definitely. Sir, biggest leadership myth in your opinion? People think it's leadership, but it's a myth.
You know, I think this notion that the leader has to have charisma
Uh,
and that he needs to be a perfect role model.
mm,
I think leaders are what's and all. I think he needs to be more human rather than suprahuman.
mm,
This notion
mm.
is an unnecessary burden to think that the leader has to be suprahuman, to be somehow
Yeah.
other in a higher pedestal than everybody else. Be a
Yes.
charisma, be have superpowers, be a role model. No, no, no. I think we just be natural. That's why you should read that book about Atticus Finch. It's all there.
Wonderful, sir. I think that's a really good thought. And again, we used to tell the story of a lion when we talk about leadership in our course. So, lion doesn't possess all the skills, and he's never the master of any of the skill. So there are multiple animals who are they have more qualities independently. But then also a lion is being considered as a leader. So it's not necessary that all the skills need to be should be there in the leader. Very nicely told, sir. So what motivates you to continue the leadership role in tough days?
It's a sort of pride, even arrogance in doing your job right. Whatever it takes. That I'm committed to doing this. So if I have to stand alone, I stand alone on that. And I think that very good family support. So I can come back at the end of the day and okay, that's okay, that's my job, but I can come back to the shall I say, the security of the family support that, okay, that's the battle. So whole day I've been engaged with it, but then I come back and it's over. I've
Right,
done my bit. So on my watch, I will not let it pass, but my watch is over at this particular time. And beyond that, one has to know the limitations of an individual. Is also
right.
something that is important.
Wonderful. Any quote or mantra you live by as a leader?
I have consciously developed one which is supposed to attribute it to Romain Roland, but Gramsci popularized it very much. Pessimism of the intellect, optimism of the will.
Oh, very good. So
When
can
you
you
are
repeat it
when
again?
pessimism of the
Yeah.
intellect.
Okay.
So when you are assessing a problem, you look at all the things why it can go wrong, what will be the problem. You are cruel, heartless in putting out all the problems, and optimism of the will. Whatever the problems you have under the circumstances, you will go ahead and do what can be done. The optimism of the will. So,
Hmm.
you having taken stock of the situation, one must move, and even if it's a 10% chance of success, one must play for it. You must actually. It's a very famous quotation, by the way. Pessimism of the intellect, optimism of the will.
Wonderful. Wonderful, sir. Sir, you told about work-life balance. So anything about it?
If you want a word, then sleep is the best. If you can go back and you actually can get a good 8 hour sleep, and then you have got your balance. I think a lot of that is to do with having uh, during the day there is a cause that you are working for,
Hmm.
and then there are a loving family support that you have. That balance between that family, which gives you the personal warmth and comfort of the interaction, and somewhere where you can have a creative urge that is satisfied also.
Right. Right.
This combination of a cause that you work for, a creative urge that you are satisfied, and a personal sense of warmth, the whether it is wife, children, whether it is the close family and friends, this combination I think is somewhere need. A person who doesn't have a cause to fight for is really a bored person, a person who's dragging his way through life. But also you need a creative urge in you. I mean, maybe in music, it need not be all released in the same space. Maybe your
Right.
workspace does not provide you for your creative talents. So, but between
Right.
that, you need this balance of these three
Hmm.
somewhere. I think this is important to me. That
Right. So, according to you, what skill every leader must master? Any one skill?
I don't know whether it is a skill, but I think it is humor that is most important, and being
Hmm.
able to laugh a little bit at yourself and your own predicament, not take yourself
Right. Right.
too seriously. So I think humor is uh, a sort of self-directed humor. See the flip side of things. That's also
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. No, that's very important because we take everything seriously, all tasks being done very seriously. So I think this is one skills which can make the environment lighter. Uh, and one of the most difficult part of being a leader, sir?
It gets lonely at times. There are times when you are standing up for an issue where some
Hmm.
people will come and say, is there even anybody else, a second person who is talking like what you are talking? And you
Right.
have to say, well, I don't know, but this is what I have to say. I've got to say this, and this is what I stand for. And at
Right.
some point, it's, I mean, in the workspace, of course, you can come
Hmm.
back to a family and relate without talking about the workspace, but then that's what
Right.
you are working for. And you do get isolated at times, and sometimes people misunderstand you because you're trying to do a good thing, and you're put back by the hostility you're facing when you're trying to do something that is meant for the good, common good.
Right, sir. And one value you would like to teach our youngsters, young leaders?
I think it is keep learning, keep always learning, be open to learning. I have this problem, what we in Tamil we say, pinjila pazhuthiradhu. Some fruits, the mango or sometimes without becoming fully big, it ripens too early.
Hmm.
Some fruit. And I keep saying, don't do that. Don't become too, keep yourself open to growing, to evolving, to learning.
Right.
Don't reach the thing. So at every stage, be open to learning. I think is important.
Exactly. Exactly. Sir, one word your team would like to use to describe you. I think if you know about it, then it's fine.
I don't know. I think everybody does admit that I work very hard,
Yeah.
and they don't quite know exactly why. But other than
Yeah.
that, other than that, I don't know. But
I know.
it's up to them. Others have to say that rather than ask.
No, I think even I remember you working very hard during the interaction which I had. And
Yeah.
that's the word which I can imagine about you.
So
Very hardworking. And so, lastly, success in your words.
in some way, big or small, having made the world a better place to live in for those who are less fortunate than privileged than us. I think
Hmm.
that's important. I don't like a definition of success which is self congratulatory or narcissistic at worst. Where you say, I have done this. Okay, yeah, I could have done it anyway. I think the important thing is that have you made a difference? And uh, it depends on the space that is given to you, the objective circumstances. You don't choose those circumstances, but you find yourself in some circumstances. Were you a victim of those circumstances, or did you make a difference, a positive difference? And that goes back to my original sense of values. That means, did you make a difference for those who are less privileged and less
Right.
fortunate? Did you make the world a better place? At least try to make the world a better place than where you were when you came in. I think
Right.
that's
So, have you made a world a better place? So, I think that was Dr. Sundaraman with us, and he told us impeccable qualities of being a leader and some experiences where he shared about a Mitanin experience where there were a lot of challenges which turned into opportunity. And now the world is seeing the largest program, the ASHA program in the world, where we have more than 1 million ground level workers which have emerged from the challenges. So he told about how we can leader need to conceptualize a vision, the direction, develop the team, and be persistent and perseverant in taking those goals towards. So again, he told about making choices, reflecting and adapting on those choices. And as a team, a leader need to be accessible to them, and they need to learn from the team as well. And also the team should have a sense of ownership, and a acknowledgement of their success is really required. So we discussed about a lot of things about him, and doing right things is really very important according to him. As a leader, a value of selflessness need to be inculcated in our future leaders, and they need to be practical, but there should be a sense of selflessness. And again, that echoes with the same thought he has told, that making a world a better place. So thank you, Dr. Sundaraman, for being with us in this vision of change. I think the program for the emerging leaders, for the future leaders, and I really hope that listening to your thoughts, listening to your experiences of 5 decades, I think will make them a better leader in this world. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.